Yes, indeed, folks. The Love Murloc is in the building. Yes. Right, okay, you listen to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. If I'm scared enough of you away with the Marvin Gaye song, I'm sure I'll manage a little bit later on. Okay, shoutouts. Yes, we can actually do shoutouts here. If you want a shoutout, then ask me. It's not that hard a concept. Just ask me to shout out whatever you like, and I shall do it. So, a shout-out goes to Team Extreme on Shattered Hand, and that's Lil for the win, apparently. And that's from Something Random. If you want a shout-out, send it over to me. Right, okay. On with the show. And less of the Marvin Gaye. Tech Leader's in the building. Welcome to him. Our resident gnome. Yeah, I hate him as well. Damn gnomes. Gank it. Gank it like it's hot. That reminds me, we've got to do a song. Gank it like it's hot. Must be done. Anyway, right, I'm blithering again, as usually happens. Back to the subject at hand. What was the subject at hand? It was actually the whole defense thing, wasn't it? Now, I'm going to continue that on the theme. It's a two-part theme for this show. So, is defense going to make MC too hard? And are the new flask and debuffs going to make MC too easy? Is it a little balancing act they're attempting here? I don't know. Right, those of you who have read the patch notes will know that they two fantastically good potions, flasks, what they are. You may not have had the pleasure to use one of them, but they are rather fantastic. They now last through death, which is good because they're damn expensive to make. They are massive buffs, really big buffs. Good for doing the really hard raid bosses. Now, these are going to last through death. So if you get twatted by Ragnaros in one hit, your Flask of Power will continue. You can resurrect, you can keep the buff. There are only a few things that allow you to do that. Stuff like the Elemental Sharpening Stone, for instance, that persists through death. There's a few other things as well. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but you get the idea. So, that's the flasks. The new 16 debuff limit. Good thing, bad thing, don't really know. It's certainly going to make MC a bit easier, and there's going to be a bigger demand for Warlocks. Curse of Doom, 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 Curse of Doom. Ad infinitum. Because as some of you may or may not be aware, the 8 debuff limit makes things quite difficult, especially in a 40-man, because putting on those horrible debuffs, if you put on more than 8, it will knock one of them off. So Fire Mages are not particularly useful in MC. One, because a lot of the mobs have some fire resistance. Some of them are totally immune, Ragnaros being an obvious choice there. Barongeddon, I believe, is also a fire elemental. I think it's Barongeddon. Haven't quite got to him yet. However, fire immune. And the big thing about, of course, fireballs is they put a debuff on the mob. So if you've got 8 fire mages chucking fireballs out, all you're going to get as debuffs is the crappy little DOT that comes with a fireball. Not what you want. You want some meaningful DOTs on there. We're talking Curse of Elements, we're talking Curse of Shadows, Curse of Doom. That kind of thing. The 16 debuff limit will hopefully make it far more difficult to run these debuffs out. And are Blizzard attempting to play a balancing act here? Obviously, they know, I'm sure they know, that nerfing defense is going to make MC and big instances harder for the main tank. It's going to make it hard for the healers to keep the main tank alive, and as many of you are well aware, if the main tank goes down, there's a significant possibility that you will wipe. Of course, the good guilds have their backup tanks, but then again, that point is that the backup tanks aren't as good. They're not as well equipped. The main tank is the main tank because he's got all the cool gear. He's the one that's supposed to survive. He takes the battering, while everyone else nukes the thing. Obviously, nerfing defense would make that more difficult, because defense reduces critical hits. Less defense means more critical hits. Means more possibility of wiping, because the main tank went down. Of course, on the other hand, debuffs. The debuffs and the flasks. Is it a balancing act? It's an interesting game Blizzard are playing here. I've seen this sort of thing happen before. A game called PlanetSide, some of you may or may not have played it. It's a massively multiplayer online first-person shooter. Balance is a big issue there. Obviously, when you've got a lot of first-person shooter players in the same room, they will inevitably complain about each other's weapons. So balancing was always an issue. Now, whenever I saw a patch where there would be a parallel buff and nerf in an attempt to balance something out, I'd always say, that probably wasn't a good idea. And usually I'd be correct, because usually they get it wrong. So Blizzard are playing a risky game here. Very risky game. I can understand why they're doing it, because oh dear. You don't want a patch of people whinging that MC is too easy, not that people would usually do that anyway, they want the fat loots, or that, you know, MC is too hard. You don't want an entire period between patches, which can often be, you know, 3 weeks to a month and a half, 2 months, possibly, between big patches, and people whinging, because they will cancel. Not good from a business perspective. However, you don't necessarily want to do a buff and a nerf together, because it's very tricky to keep the balance out. Very tricky indeed. There are two possibilities from this. Either Blizzard is going to get it spot on and we will have a new way of playing WoW, a new nicely balanced way of doing the big instances, or we will have a total balance disaster where MC either is made too hard or too easy. Very difficult, very tricky game Blizzard are playing. I commend them for their bravery. I'll give them that. Brave thing to do. Whether it's advisable is a different way entirely. Now Lavis is saying, I wonder if TB's watching what he says since the Blizzard employees are around. Don't be ridiculous. Sorry, but the Blizzard employees are adults. They can deal with a bit of constructive criticism. They know I love the game. They know I'm not going to unsubscribe from the game. But I am very sceptical about this. Very sceptical about a congruent, parallel buff-nerf situation. Because I know, I've seen it in the past, it can go wrong. But we'll see what happens. We may be in luck. We may be in luck. It may be okay. Then again, it may not be okay. But that's all we can do. Is just to watch, listen, and learn. Okay. A few shout-outs before I go back to working as intended, and then I may unleash the Murloc on you all. Magos says, can I get a shout-out to my blind eye? Yes, you can. There you go. Shout-out to your blind eye. Shout-out to Luke and Chris in the UK. That's from Night Talon. Can I get a fertility blessing? That's Lohan. That's good. Fertility blessing. Okay. The Love Murloc says, you will procreate and produce many children, and most of them won't have webbed toes. Foreign shout-outs to Toss Ebon Tendrils. A shout-out on Bloodscalp and say, don't worry, one day we'll beat server queues and instance bugs and defeat MC. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Oh dear. It would seem tech leader's demanding that I don't hurt his feelings. Well, the problem is he's bouncing up and down. I can't see him. He's a gnome. He's under my feet somewhere, you know. Gnomes always get under your feet, I find. Very annoying. Ugh. And, no, I'm not going to do that shout-out, because that's just nasty. Don't ask me to shout out and say that people suck. I don't know these people. Why should I tell them they suck? They're probably quite cool. So no, I won't do that. Anyway, yes, back to working as intended. We've got more suggestions in. If you want to suggest, go to themurloc@gmail.com. The Murloc, no spaces between that, at gmail.com. And the subject is the Kazakh griefing, and how do we fix the Kazakh griefing while maintaining the individual character of the instance? Aha, so here we go. Right, Per Larson says this. The whole idea of an outdoor raid boss is to make it possible for people to kill a boss without doing an instance, and also to allow outside interference from the real world. Yes. Yes, it is. And then he says the problem is the level 1 without armor running into the battle to grief it. Instead, there should be a rather simple boss that blocks the entrance that requires at least 25 persons to beat it, with a really fast respawn to prevent lone wolves from running in and spawning it. Good call. To be honest, you don't see level 1s going to Kazakh. They can't get there. They can't get through the blasted lands to get there. Even if they could get through the blasted lands, they can't get through the tainted scar to get there. They can't get to Kazakh. Level 1s are not a problem. You don't need level 1s. You just need people to throw themselves at Kazakh. You know, level 45s. They can survive in the Blasted Lands. Level 45, if all of the 61 demons have been killed, which they inevitably have been, if they've managed to carve a path all the way to Kazakh himself. So when your level 45 takes off all his armor, throws himself at Kazakh, and gets killed by the AoE. That's the situation. So that's a good suggestion for the Kazakh griefing. Again, we're getting back to this theme of have an entrance. So having some kind of castle, a fort, an arena, a magical circle of doom. And perhaps have the entrance guarded by a lesser demon that has a really fast respawn and obviously cannot be snuck past. An interesting idea. I do have to point out his point that he made there that no one's made so far, that the idea of outdoor raid bosses, especially on PvP, is to allow interference. Yes, it is. It's supposed to be difficult because there's always a risk that someone will come along and try and spoil your party. Now, while I have no objection to people attacking raid parties for Kazakh, I have an objection to people deliberately griefing Kazakh and making him go supreme and wipe. I disagree with that fundamentally. Right, Alex Drayshev has a suggestion. Well, it could get it so that when Kazakh is attacked by one of the two factions, then if the opposite faction tried to grief Kazakh, he stuns the first faction that attack him, and then gets Uber and kicks the smeg out of the opposing faction. Then returns to his normal self. Right, so it stuns the entire raid group, goes supreme, wipes the other party, and then goes back to it. And that lasts until there are no more opposing factions in the radius, and the players don't regen, so it's effectively Kazakh can get rid of the raid group, that's the second raid group that's come along, and everyone else is left intact to begin from where they began from before. Maybe. That's a maybe. I think it would be a little silly, a little artificial. While I think you can get away with barriers, forts, and bosses guarding the entrance, a whole thing about he goes schizo on a second raid while stunning the whole of the first raid seems a little bit artificial to me. I'm not sure about that idea, but still, it's creative, and creative is good. Moiran has come up with something interesting. I can't believe I'm saying this, but as a Warlock player, disable summoning for the entire zone where Kazakh is. Ah, now I see. Now I see. This didn't spring to mind. The big problem with the grinding, the griefing, is that it's lower level people being summoned in past all the demons. Everyone else has to fight their way there, which is okay if you get a bunch of 60s. You then summon level 1s in that die instantly. He gains 75,000 health back. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Disable summoning. Yeah, it would make it a little bit more difficult to get the raid together, but then that's the challenge, isn't it? You sally forth as a raid, you don't get a few warlocks in there and then summon the whole lot. No. Not good at all. Right, so working as intended is coming along nicely. I'm thinking about a format to post these things on the forums. If any of you have any suggestions of a format, I've got 3 sets of working as intended ideas for the last 3 shows that we've done. And I'm thinking of a format to post them. I don't really want to post them all in a thread, because obviously, well, you know, it's difficult to read. It's a big mess. So if you have any ideas as to how I can present them on the forums, let me know. themurloc@gmail.com, and I'll see what I can do. A few more shout-outs before I go into Ask the Murloc. A demo says, shout out to my dead guild, my modem is on fire, please. Consider yourself shouted out to. Shout out to my friend, Roaring Rampage of Raging Revenge, Ricky. That's from Tilth. Scary man. Sounds like a porn star. Never mind. Shout out to Panda. Apparently, Arg Panda, you be sizzling. Oh, I've got to say that in a pirate voice, okay. Yarl Panda, you be sizzling. That wasn't good at pirates. Basset King says free the piggy. Yeah, that's fair enough. Are you Jesus? No. I'm not Jesus, don't be ridiculous. I don't have the hair for it. Okay, time for Ask the Murloc. Less blithering from me and more comedy features. The Murloc is angry as usual. Feel his wrath.
Ask the Murloc.
Dear Murloc, I've seen people with gold exclamation marks over their heads. What does this mean?
Back off, you snivelling cows, for it is I, the Murloc, come to save you all from your own ineptitude, yes. Ah, yes, the famous gold exclamation mark exploit. This is commonly used by high-level players to gain an unfair advantage over newbies. By activating these gold exclamation marks and then following the instructions given out, cunning high-level players can get free gold, equipment, and levels. This has been identified as clear hacking, and anyone found doing so will be banned immediately, then have their arms chopped off, mashed into a pulp, and then mixed into a delicious cocktail, which I will then drink in front of their pain-stricken eyes. Ha ha!
Ask the Murloc.
Dear Murloc, can you tell me what the best set of armor is? I'm having trouble competing with only green items.
The best set of armour? Why, my ignorant little friend, let me show you the way. You see, most people believe there are 3 tiers of armour. Tier 1 is the blue sets, Dreadmist, Majesties and so forth. Tier 2 is the class-specific modern core sets, Arcanist, Might and all that fancy jazz. And Tier 3 can be found on raid bosses and in Blackwing Lair, and includes Nemesis and the 10 Storms. What most people don't know is that there is a Tier 4. It consists of 5 rings, one of which must be worn by a token ethnic fellow. These rings are called Earth, Fire, Water, Air, and Heart, and when their powers are combined, they will summon Captain Planet, who will destroy your enemies using a combination of conservation propaganda and solar power. But all of that is irrelevant, since you will not survive the night. The Murloc hungers for tasty man flesh. Ha ha!
Ask the Murloc.
Dear Murloc, don't you think that you're going to hell for being so mean to everyone?
Yes, I'm quite possibly going to hell, yes. I'm quite looking forward to it. It'll be a nice change from this chilly old blighty bloody rain. While I'm here, I might as well make the most of it. Bring me kittens, I shall load them into my catapult and fire them at passing children. Ha ha!